So this is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, editions dedicated to the baby angel Geronimo. This is part A, and this is being broadcast live at approximately 16:30 hours GMT, 17:30 hours UK local time. And as he said, yesterday we announced that we'd be looking in detail at this evil assertion by the evil-doing Quentin Letts. He's supposed to be the political sketch writer at the Times. And the evildoer has got 4 words. And those words say they treat alpacas better. That is where it says that. Now this is the front page, page 1 of the Times of Thursday, 16th of September 2021. We didn't do a broadcast on Thursday, but we are doing one on Friday. The 4 words that treat alpacas better, they don't apply to any event, any fact, anything that can be referred to as being anyone's treatment of alpacas, which is the species that has been in the public domain, solely related to the behavior of the UK evil government, the 4-year-long conspiracy, criminality and lying by the UK central government department, called DEFRA. And it has been lying for 4 years against baby angel Geronimo. So no criteria, no test, no measure, nothing matches, remotely matches this 4-word criminality and lying that Quentin Letts has been allowed to publish on page 1 of the Times. And the fact that he has been allowed to do that, the fact that he has been even able to think such a statement, shows that he is evil. Because baby angel Geronimo, the most innocent member of his species, has been the target of the worst imaginable mistreatment, violations, and plot that can be found in the accessible records of what is known as an organized so-called state, anywhere, at any time, since counting began. The fact that Quentin Letts can write that, and that he can write in the knowledge that he will not be challenged by anyone else in Fleet Street, shows that we are in darkness, we are in evil land. How is it that the evil Quentin Letts has said that treat alpacas better? In the knowledge that he will not be attacked, he will not be criticized, he would not be challenged. The answer is that the entirety of the Fleet Street and the so-called mainstream media is sunk in immorality, in cruelty and criminality, that nobody would find anything wrong in that absolutely cruel, criminal, brazen boast. What he's doing is he's actually celebrating the cruelty and criminality plotted against the baby angel Geronimo. That's what he's doing as well. Today's Financial Times, which we have been calling financial crimes for a few months, has got a brazen picture and description on page 1 saying that Johnson is eyeing the next election. And the description to that picture gives the whole thing away. That the Arabs are okay. The Arabs are not terrorists. The Arabs are not only not terrorists, but also very good, valuable friends. And this is the first paragraph that gives the game away. This is the description of the photograph. Boris Johnson and Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan inspect a guard of honor in London a day after the United Arab Emirates pledged to invest £10 billion in the UK clean energy and technology. There is no way that this money is going to be spent entirely on the clean energy and fighting the climate change. And the next paragraph in that vanity vein is that Johnson also put the finishing touches to his reshuffle yesterday, giving his government a younger profile and signaling an intensification of preparations for the next general election. And the Lib Dems, Ed Davey, is already kind of hinting at doing another Lib Dem coalition underneath the heading that says that he's not. And the financial crimes has no qualms. Financial crimes is a complete, absolute doormat to the crooks, big business. It's full of propaganda for the crooks. The Daily Mail heading that Andrew strikes back at High Court over sex case shows that the High Court is completely a rubber stamp, as 3 successive holders in positions as so-called judges in the High Court colluded with the DEFRA conspiracy against baby angel Geronimo. And they delivered rubber stamp rulings supporting the criminals at DEFRA and in Downing Street. As David Neuberger just about to retire as the first president of the so-called Supreme Court in January 2017, took part in the Supreme Court ruling against the UK government of 14 years previously in the Hrs case. That actually showed that justice doesn't exist in reality. And the fact that the Hrs had to wait 14 years for that ruling by the UK Supreme Court that actually admitted the culpability and the liability and the illegality and the corruption and criminality and the breach of due process and judicial rule of law. Sure that there is no rule of law, there is no judicial independence, and there is no judicial impartiality, neutrality, let alone opposition to the status quo in the state. So the state is in darkness, and the darkness is being routinely rubber stamped by the judiciary, which is a corrupt bureaucracy. Neuberger said in July 2017, literally maybe months before he retired, but he did say, according to Martin Bentham, who duly reported his statement in the evening, no standard, that as a result of Brexit, London had become the center of the world litigants, and it would become a center of the litigation center of the world. There is no such thing as a world where it comes to litigation through the London courts. Only the biggest criminals and swindlers and crooks and murderers occupying positions of power, positions of decision-making powers in various parts of the world. Those criminals do not allow rule of law due process to be exercised by the courts independently of the criminals' regimes. And so therefore, David Neuberger was lying. You cannot find a more kind of prestigious, within quotes, position or post. What is happening in the courts in Britain is absolutely, totally, brazenly, undeniably, unutterably, undeniably rule by injustice, rule for injustice. When it comes to the ordinary people, ordinary targets of criminality, given the rubber stamp by the judiciary, ordinary people, ordinary beings, ordinary targets, like the baby angel Geronimo, are not included, not even notionally included, for being treated at all fairly, or even notionally treated fairly. So when Quentin Letts in the Times says they treat alpacas better, He could not have lied more viciously, more untruthfully, more brazenly, more shamelessly, more cruelly, more criminally, more corruptly, even if he tried. Any observer, any ordinary, reasonable observer of 4 years of criminal lies by DEFRA, confected, invented against the baby angel Geronimo, the most innocent. Any observer over the last 4 years would know that Quentin Letts was behaving exactly as Nazi Hitler and his propagandist Goebbels had done. No country known in the known world today or in the last 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, hundreds of years or thousands of years has had a target, the most innocent being targeted, the most corrupt, targeted by the most criminal, dishonest, oppressive, persecuting set of decision-making criminals. As baby angel Geronimo has been. And the justification, there is no known justification for the criminals conspiring, targeting, plotting against, targeting, and plotting against the baby angel Geronimo. And there is no record, there is no suggestion of any record, there is no indication of any record of any action, any condition, any behavior that could remotely be associated with the most innocent baby angel Geronimo, that could allow in any sphere, allow the criminals attacking him, the innocent baby angel Geronimo, any pretext, any excuse, any cause, any ground, any reason for them to behave in the way that they have been behaving for 4 years. So where did this criminal, liar, crook, Quentin Letts, where did he find this to say that baby angel Geronimo has been treated even with minimum tolerance, even with minimum respect? And yet he says that alpacas are treated better. Where? And who are these people who have been treated worse than alpacas? These people have not been treated even noticeably. And that piece should not be there. The main piece on the same page on the Times on the Thursday, the 16th of September 2021 is a corrupt headline. Johnson wields axe in cabinet reshuffle. It's not an axe at all. Johnson didn't wield an axe whatsoever. Johnson wielded a token axe because there is no real opposition to the dark land regime that Johnson fronts. So he had to kind of stage a ritual. And the so-called reshuffled out holders of the positions are as bad, as evil as the ones that have been reshuffled in, as bad as the ones that have not been reshuffled anyway, like the evildoer George Injustice or the evildoing DEFRA. So therefore, absolutely untruthful. And the Daily Mirror is talking about the mood shift. Now, this is something that is unusual. On page 5 of the Daily Mirror, which is headed May, that is Theresa May, we owe families a Hillsborough law. What we don't owe is a new law, because the existing token laws are more than enough to hold the wrongdoers and criminals and murderers, manslaughterers to account. And this one says, Theresa May demanded urgency from ministers to back a Hillsborough law aimed at protecting families of victims and survivors of disasters. Now, Theresa May was in post as Prime Minister when Michael Gove was in post at DEFRA, where George Injustice has been in post. When Baby Angel Geronimo was being subjected to that stage of the conspiracy to defame Baby Angel Geronimo, to undermine him, to violate him, to threaten him, and to expose him to absolute danger for no reason. Now, May was in post, and it is absolutely certain that during her part of the 4 years when the baby angel Geronimo was continually targeted by wrongdoers and criminals, she was sent communications by the supporters of the innocent baby angel Geronimo, and that she must have ignored, in effect, all the pleas and communications that were made against the criminals plotting to hurt baby angel Geronimo. So, her waking up to the Hillsborough family's plight is less than sincere. So this piece in the Mirror says, as the Mirror reported yesterday, families of Hillsborough victims want an independent advisor to work on behalf of relatives bereaved in disasters. That such a news, such an item can be printed in the Mirror is proof that Little England is submerged in darkness, injustice, criminality is the rule of law. None of the wrongdoers are responsible for the massacre at Hillsborough has been held to account. Now, on the opposite page in the Daily Mirror is the piece on page 4 about Flatbroke. It says, owners hit by cladding scandal face financial ruin without help. And remember, we are talking about the corrupt criminal state of the law, or the state of the UK which is in darkness, dark land. These are the placards, some of the placards that were carried in the demonstration. And one placard reads, Tory liars stoking fires. And the other one, this is flammable. My flat shouldn't be flammable. And it was a demonstration where protesters protested yesterday. And there is a piece in another paper which is absolutely dishonest, is that Grenfell fire was foreseen 13 years ago, at least 13 years ago, because the cladding that exacerbated the spread of the fire, the cladding had been found unfit 11 years previously. So you've got completely unfit state, the UK state, in terms of justice, in terms of fairness, in terms of the courts doing the job, or being even involved in doing any job, holding the state into account. Here is the piece about Stephen Lawrence on page 15 of the Daily Mirror. And the headline gives the game away. It says, Stephen suspects extra year in jail. Now, Stephen's suspect is not Stephen's murderer, because it's only a suspect. And it says, a Stephen Lawrence murder suspect. I mean, why should he be called a murder suspect nearly 30 years later? If it takes more than 30 years to even call him a murderer, then that's it. That gives the latest evidence and proof and confirmation of the proof that there is no system of proper justice in this country. And it's in the darkness. Hillsborough, nobody is held to account. Hillsborough massacre, Grenfell massacre, nobody is held to account. And the racists murdering Stephen Lawrence in April 1993, nobody is actually held to account for the murder of Stephen Lawrence or for the massacres of the people at Grenfell or for the massacre of the football fans in Hillsborough. So when the criminal liar Quentin Lett says they treat alpacas better, this liar is not only lying, but is poking, mocking, taunting the victims of lies. The victims of lies and the victim, the most universal, innocent baby angel Geronimo, the alpaca. It's like the Taiwanese murdering thousands of dolphins, showing two fingers to the world. The conspirators, the plotters against baby angel Geronimo have been doing the brazen plotting and conspiracy, but their propaganda stooges in Fleet Street, like the lying criminal Quentin Letts, are also taunting baby angel Geronimo by putting upside down the truth about the treatment meted out to baby angel Geronimo over the last 4 years by the crooks and criminals and plotters and dark age evil ones at DEFRA, via DEFRA, at number 10 Downing Street, via number 10 Downing Street, and the criminals in between in the media, like Dominique Lightson, by Dominic Lightson, by the Bristol Lies, by private liar Ian Pissoff. Now the Daily Star has caught up on Pierce Moron. Because he's now being called a moron on the front page of the Daily Star itself. It's now Pierce Moron, and he's confessing that he wanted to headbutt the weather broadcaster, Alex Beresford, who actually challenged him over his racist, hate-spewing attack on Meghan Markle. The fact that there is no justice, there is no ethics, there is no morality, there is no compassion, there is no respect, there is no dignity in the UK state as such is proven by the fact that Ofcom, which is supposed to be the regulator against misconduct by broadcasters, has totally upheld the moron, thus becoming a moronic outfit of scum. Why is the so-called will of Brenda's husband Philip to be kept hidden for 90 years. What is there in the will that exposes Philip for who he was? And this one, the so-called I newspaper, continues to descend into the depth of dishonesty and criminality, colluding with the narrative to make the congenital liar Boris Johnson come across as even remotely familiar with the concept of dignity and principle. There is no hiding the fact that there is no justice, there is no freedom, there is no liberty. As Priti Patel warns campaigners that they will be sent to prison. This is being reported by the Times after the environmental change protesters in M25. The editorial opinion, so-called piece, in today's Times, Friday the 17th of September 2021, is supposedly about the new occupant in the post of Secretary of State at the expense of education. But it's not a piece that is remotely about education whatsoever. That Quentin Litz could write that lie, criminal lie and denial, and no challenge to his lying is recorded in the Times of today, the day after. Shows that the Times actually runs the agenda of denial and lying and cruelty and illegality and criminality that Quentin lets 4 words of denial actually confirm. And the fact that Martin Bashir, who did the lying interview or lied for the interview with Diana that was published on the BBC in 1995, that he is not going to be prosecuted shows that there is no rule of law, there is no due process, and there is no holding to account anyone who is crookedly engaged in conspiring and lying. As the Times on page 23, the Times of Thursday, the 16th of September 2021. When the criminal George Injustice perpetrated the crimes confected against Baby Angel Geronimo and resumed his own version of continuing criminality and lying against Baby Angel Geronimo, none of the so-called Fleet Street papers, including the Daily Mail, including the Murdoch scum, none of them questioned any of the threads, any of the details, any of the utter, absolute untruths stated by the criminal George Injustice and his co-criminal Sir Defra against Baby Angel Geronimo. There have been, and there are, literally hundreds of items of untruth and lying and denial, fabrication, invention by the crooks at Defra that any reasonable journalist should have queried. Any reasonable journalist should have asked to be shown the evidence justifying, notionally justifying any of the lies, untruths, and criminal assertions being made against the Baby Angel Geronimo by George Injustice and his criminal department, Defra. None of the so-called Fleet Street newspapers, and none of the liars in broadcasting counterparts like the Bristol Lies, and none of the so-called commentators, the crooks, the sick-making criminals like Dominic Lye's son, even remotely hinted at the possibility that the liars against Baby Angel Geronimo might be liars, might be lying, might be making up, might be faking, fabricating. They didn't. Neither Fleet Street, nor Bristol Lies, not Dominic Lye's son, not the BBC, not Sky, not ITV, none of them raised the questions. Hundreds of questions they could have raised already in the last 4 years. Hundreds of questions, thousands of questions remain outstanding for the crooks, the criminals, the liars to be asked and to be asked to answer factually, truthfully, honestly, and to the standards of highest neutrality, verifiability, universality. Defra criminals were not asked any questions by the Fleet Street, opportunists, careerists, time servers, and the Defra criminals didn't feel under any pressure. DEFRA criminals were not put under any pressure of rigor, any rigorous questioning, and they didn't answer any rigorous questions. Any question about health, any question about health and health safety is automatically universally, when considered universally, must be put at the highest level of purity and rigor. And the highest possible level of scientific scrutiny available at that time. And yet none of the crooks in Fleet Street, none of the criminal, negligent colleagues of the crook, Quentin Letts, put that question anywhere in any of the outlets in Fleet Street, nor any of their counterparts on the BBC or ITV or Sky News or Channel 4 News put the questions, which they should have done. All the lies that DEFRA has said against baby angel Geronimo must be included in the evidence in prosecutions against the criminals, DEFRA criminals, personally and collectively, and they must be held to account, and they must be treated as the highest offenders, worst offenders against the most innocent target of their criminality and offense. The contents of the court ruling dated the 9th of July 2019 by Murray This should have been, that one should have been in particular subjected to widespread appeal, constitutional law appeal, because that particular so-called ruling by Murray doesn't recognize the UK's obligations under the international conventions and treaties and declarations. And it doesn't, the actual cited particular act of parliament is in itself a criminal contradiction. So when the Fleet Street criminals say that High Court judge ruled, those criminals in Fleet Street were lying, because the contents of the ruling, so-called, did not show compliance by the UK state with the requirements of international law, particularly. Because if the kind of formula or format that the Secretary of State may think fit is allowed, then that has to be extensively shown to have been arrived at after checking that the UK government or that court of law had actually complied with each and every aspect, element, component of the duty to base any decision on actual proven, materially proven, scientifically proven evidence. Because if that is not complied with, then not only Baby Angel Geronimo, but others, including humans, can be violated by the apparent provision of the Act of Parliament. If the Secretary of State thinks fit, it should not be if the Secretary of State thinks fit. It should be if the Secretary of State manifestly is seen to have sought to ensure that his or her decision has expressly met the requirements of the international convention, treaty, or charter. And we can say that this applies to every single act of parliament that is described in that way. Because if the Secretary of State is allowed to have superiority as expressed in that phrase, if the Secretary of State thinks fit, then no living creature in the country is safe from being violated by the Secretary of State or by the state. It's a fundamental concept, the fundamental concept of right to life, that is the highest duty owed by any state. And that has been left unexamined by the Fleet Street, and by Quentin Lads, and by all the papers and all the media. So there has to be at least one, if not more than one, challenge, extensive challenge to item by item, itemized, rigorous examination of the conspiracy on each item of conspiracy against the baby angel Geronimo, perpetrated, confected, inflicted during the last 4 years by DEFRA and by complicity with and via Fleet Street and complicity with the Downing Street and by the occupant in the post of Prime Minister. All the evidence shows that all these post holders are liable to be prosecuted for conceiving and colluding in being complicit with the plot or serial plots to cause harm to the most innocent baby angel Geronimo. We shall stop here just after 1 hour and 15 minutes of this edition of Baby Angel Geronimo, edition of the KhoodeelaarTV channel. We shall be updating and continuing in the next editions